28 years later's new trilogy was teased by a single line in the original movie. Danny Boyle's 28 Days Later is remembered as one of the most groundbreaking and emotionally raw horror films of the 2000s. Gritty, fast-paced, and devastatingly human, it redefined the zombie genre by introducing the infected, humans turned rabid by the rage virus. But beneath the chaos, blood, and despair of the film's dystopian backdrop, one quiet line hinted at a much larger story, a global horror that audiences are only now going to experience in 28 years later. With the announcement of a new trilogy helmed by Boyle and writer Alex Garland, it's becoming clear that a single line from the original movie might have planted the seeds for everything that's to come. The rest of the world hasn't fallen. In 28 Days Later, there's a fleeting yet powerful moment of dialogue that could now be seen as the spine of this long-awaited new trilogy. After Jim, Selena, and Hannah escape the horrors of the rage-ravaged military compound, they stumble upon a radio message. It's a broadcast not of desperation, but of calm coordination, a signal from another country. The subtle implication? The rage virus outbreak may have been contained within Britain. This idea is reinforced when one of the characters says something to the effect of, "It was just Britain. The rest of the world hasn't fallen." At the time, this line served as a rare glimmer of hope in an otherwise bleak story. But viewed now in hindsight, and in the context of 28 years later being the start of a new global trilogy, it feels less like comfort and more like foreshadowing. Because if the world wasn't infected in 2002, then the question becomes, what happens when it is? The calm before a global storm. Boyle and Garland's original film was intensely focused. It kept its scope tight and intimate, reflecting the psychological toll of collapse on a few survivors. Yet, by suggesting that the virus was limited to the UK, the filmmakers subtly opened the door for future chaos. What if the rest of the world let its guard down? What if, 28 years later, the virus finally spreads beyond British shores? This single line implied a ticking time bomb. In classic horror storytelling, the idea that something is contained is almost always a setup for it not being so. Now, with a trilogy set to explore a world decades after the first outbreak, we may see how governments, societies, and individuals handle the re-emergence or escape of the rage virus on a much larger scale. Time jump, a story catalyst. With the trilogy jumping from 28 days later to 28 weeks later, and now to 28 years later, time itself has become a thematic element. It's not just about survival in the moment anymore, it's about legacy, mutation, and generational trauma. What would a world look like nearly 3 decades after a near-extinction event? What kind of new societies have emerged? What forgotten mistakes are being repeated? And if that fateful line in the original is to be the narrative anchor, the trilogy may very well explore the aftermath of decades of complacency. If the world wasn't infected back then, has it been preparing all these years, or has it become vulnerable again, lulled into false security by time and distance? A trilogy that echoes global fears. In today's post-pandemic world, that line from 28 days later resonates in disturbing new ways. We've seen firsthand how quickly diseases can spread, how fragile borders become, and how misinformation, mistrust, and fear can unravel societal order. Garland and Boyle's decision to turn that one line into a trilogy's foundation reflects a real-world anxieties, how "not here" can swiftly become everywhere. The new trilogy isn't just about more infected people and jump scares. It's poised to be a social commentary, one that uses horror to reflect how the global community reacts to threats, both known and unknown. That innocuous line, "the rest of the world hasn't fallen," could now be